It was just another grey morning in the glass tower of a billion-dollar corporation when fate decided to change the life of a man nobody ever noticed. The janitor's mop glided across the marble floors, his reflection trembling under the pale office lights, and behind those tired eyes lay a story heavier than any burden a man should carry alone. He was a single father named Daniel, a man who once dreamed of building machines and writing code. But life had written a different script for him. His uniform smelled faintly of bleach and rain, his shoes worn thin from endless walking, his heart cracked but not yet broken. And that morning, one simple accident, one spilled cup of water, would reveal the truth he had been quietly living with. It would show the world, and especially the CEO of that company, what true love and sacrifice really looked like. Before we go deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. It helps stories like this reach more hearts and remind people that humanity still exists. Daniel had been working as a janitor at Harlow Technologies for almost 2 years. Every night after finishing his shift, he would take the subway to the small one-bedroom apartment he shared with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. She was his light, his reason, the little heartbeat that kept him from collapsing into despair. Her mother, Rachel, had passed away when Lily was only 3, leaving Daniel in a storm of grief and responsibility. He had promised her on that hospital bed that he would raise their daughter with dignity, no matter how hard life became. He was once a promising engineer, brilliant with computers, but a sudden layoff, hospital bills, and the collapse of his savings had left him stranded. The only job he could find was janitorial work, cleaning the very floors of the corporate world he used to dream of joining. He never complained. Every morning he woke before dawn, packed Lily's school lunch, left a note on the counter, "Be brave today, my star," and walked through the rain to the subway. At work, people barely noticed him. Executives in sharp suits passed him like a shadow, talking about profit margins and vacations, while Daniel quietly wiped the fingerprints off their glass doors. But he didn't mind the silence. He had found peace in routine, and sometimes peace was all a man could ask for. Still, deep down, a flicker of shame burned whenever he caught his reflection in the glass walls. The reflection of a man who once had dreams larger than his pay stub. The CEO of Harlow Technologies, Evelyn Hart, was known for her discipline, precision, and cold efficiency. She ran her empire like a machine, no emotion, no hesitation. People admired her, feared her, and whispered about her past. She had built everything from scratch, they said, after being abandoned and betrayed. She didn't believe in excuses. She didn't believe in weakness. To her, people like Daniel were invisible, necessary, but forgettable. That morning, the storm outside had left the office floors slick and reflective. Daniel was working in Evelyn's private floor, cleaning early before anyone arrived. Her office, a pristine corner suite overlooking the city skyline, was the only one left to mop. On her glass desk sat a silver laptop, still open, a faint glow on its screen. Daniel noticed a cup of water sitting dangerously close to the keyboard. He reached for it gently, intending to move it away, but in that single moment, the bucket behind him tilted, and a small wave of water spilled over the edge of his mop. It splashed directly onto the CEO's laptop. His heart stopped. The glowing screen fizzled, flickered, and went black. For a moment he couldn't even breathe. Panic clawed at his chest as he grabbed a handful of tissues, trying to dry the device, whispering to himself that maybe it wasn't ruined. But just as he was blotting the water, he heard the sharp click of heels behind him. Evelyn had arrived earlier than usual. Her expression hardened instantly as she saw her laptop soaked and her janitor trembling beside it. She snapped his name from his badge, her voice cold and cutting. "Daniel, what have you done?" Her assistant rushed in, gasping, already preparing to call IT. Daniel stammered apologies, his hands shaking. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I was just—" But she didn't want to hear it. She told him to leave. She said she'd deal with him later, her tone a warning that he'd likely lose his job. Daniel walked away in silence, his mind spinning with dread. Losing this job meant losing his apartment, losing stability, and failing Lily. He spent the rest of the morning pacing the service corridor, his uniform damp, his thoughts darker than ever. When he was finally called back to her office, Evelyn was sitting stiffly behind her desk. The laptop, still wet, had been opened by IT, but something unexpected had happened. The technicians had managed to boot the drive, and before her eyes appeared a folder that didn't belong to her. It was titled Lily's World. Curious, she had clicked it, and inside she found hundreds of photos, hand-drawn sketches, and scanned pages of a child's diary. She read the first few entries and froze. They were from Daniel's daughter. They spoke about Daddy's hard work, about how one day he'll make computers again like he used to, about how he's the best janitor in the world because he never gives up. There were drawings of Daniel sweeping floors, smiling, carrying her on his shoulders. One drawing showed her wish: "One day I'll buy Daddy a big computer so he can build his dreams again." Evelyn stared at the screen, unable to look away. She realized the folder must have been on Daniel's USB drive, which he used to play music quietly through the laptop speakers while cleaning, music his daughter recorded for him. She felt something inside her crack. She hadn't cried in years, but there in her glass fortress she wiped a tear before anyone could see. When Daniel entered, expecting punishment, he found Evelyn sitting silently, her expression unreadable. She gestured for him to sit, which he refused politely, hands clasped nervously. The office felt heavy, the city humming faintly behind the windows. She finally spoke, her tone no longer sharp but subdued. "Daniel, your daughter is very talented." The words hit him like a wave. He froze, unsure how she even knew. She turned the laptop to him, showing the open folder. His breath caught as he saw Lily's drawings on the CEO's screen. He tried to explain that he sometimes used his USB to back up her art because his old computer had crashed, that he never meant for anyone to see it. His voice broke midway, the shame of poverty mingling with the pride of a father's love. For a long time, Evelyn said nothing. Then, quietly, she asked him about his past. It was the first time anyone in that building had ever asked. Daniel hesitated, but something about her tone told him it was safe. He told her everything. How he used to be an engineer, how he lost his wife, how life forced him into survival mode. Evelyn listened without interrupting, her gaze softening as he spoke. The silence that followed was no longer awkward but sacred, like the kind that comes before redemption. Later that day, Evelyn called her executive team into a meeting. They expected an announcement about damages or staff discipline. Instead, she said something that stunned everyone. She announced a new internal program called Second Chance Initiative, a project aimed at retraining and uplifting underemployed workers within the company. The first person to be sponsored and trained under that initiative would be their janitor, Daniel Miller. When Daniel heard the news, he could barely stand. His hands trembled, tears threatening to escape, as Evelyn extended her hand and said softly, "Your daughter was right. You will build again." In the weeks that followed, Daniel began attending evening tech workshops funded by the company. Evelyn personally mentored him, recognizing not just his skill, but his humility and resilience. Over time, he rose to a junior developer position. The same people who once walked past him now sought his help with their projects. But he never stopped wearing that old Janitor S badge in his pocket, a reminder of where he came from and how a mistake turned into a miracle. Months later, on a bright morning, Daniel walked into Evelyn's office again, but this time with Lily beside him. She carried a small box wrapped in blue paper. Evelyn smiled, kneeling down to Lily's level. "What's this?" she asked gently. Lily grinned and said, "A thank you gift." Inside was a drawing of Evelyn, Daniel and Lily standing together in front of a big computer screen that said, "Kindness wins." Evelyn looked at it for a long moment, her eyes glistening. For the first time in years, she felt something pure, something real, the healing warmth of gratitude. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that sometimes a single act of kindness can change a life, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Your support helps spread stories that prove humanity is still alive.